The Holocaust curriculum blows my students' minds. They are always shocked about what has happened during the Holocaust.
The legacy of those victims and the families that survive is a legacy that has to be moved forward through the telling of their stories.
I felt through this whole process, my fifth graders were the ones who were most impacted and most wanted to do something once they hear about the horrible things that happened.
By studying the Holocaust in the classroom, the students are more aware of what leads to something like this and the fact that it wasn't a one-time incident.
No matter how much I teach it, no matter how long I extend the lesson, the students just continue to want more. I turned it into a 4-week lesson this year, and it still was not enough.
Taylor and I have been so privileged to see empathy blossom.
I think it's extremely important to teach the Holocaust to the students. Very soon, we're not going to have any first-hand experiences to be shared. So to study it in the classroom is of utmost importance. I see the students' faces as they do this. They have a connection with that person, and to realize that this was a person just like me. They have family, they went to school, they rode their bike, and it brings it down to a personal level. I think the most shocking thing for 8th graders to realize is that genocide still happens. We need to teach this more. We've got to get these kids to become adults that don't allow things like this to happen.
Eva's book is captivating for the students. She was 10 years old. Some of my students are 10 years old. Eva's Courtyard is an area where people will come to learn about the Holocaust. Each student was given a person from the Tennessee Holocaust Commission website from the Living On collection, and they painted a butterfly on each rock to remember that person, and they are forever going to be out here. When I found out that she was willing to come to surprise the kids, that was a huge moment. I know that they're going to remember that forever. When we can change their minds and give them this information at that age, then they will grow into somebody that is going to want to actually make a change in the world.
The Holocaust curriculum has taught the students about a history that was pretty much unknown to them. When they hear about this genocide, they want to know, well, has this happened anywhere else before? Is it happening now? I've had a lot of emotional responses when I speak of the numbers. And when I try to compare it and tell them, you know, that's like the population of the state of Tennessee. It's almost mind-boggling. We went beyond what the book was giving us. We had to do documentaries. We have to do survival interviews. We have to make sure that this thing never is forgotten. There's some learning going on in this place. As I teach them and then they're learning, my students are literally going home talking to their folks about the Holocaust. That gives me great joy.
It's very scary to think that we live in a society where people don't know what's going on and they don't know what's happened in the past. One of my standards is to do the Diary of Anne Frank, and being able to pull in that young life into our curriculum and letting these kids really relate to that young person helps them to understand this was just a girl, a Jewish girl, going to school just like us, however she was being persecuted. When that law was passed, those kids had to leave and were not welcome back anymore. We try really hard here at our school to talk about intolerance and to empower our kids to speak up for themselves, to speak up for others. I want to empower them with the supplies they need and the knowledge they need to prevent it from happening again in the future.
The Holocaust. It's one of the most pivotal events in the 20th century. Students really have to have an appreciation for how did we get to that point. We have Jewish students who have grandparents who went through this. Getting those stories out really help our students to understand the suffering that was endured.
There is no single issue that brings up the morality of right and wrong than what was exposed through these concentration camps.
And ultimately, the Holocaust is a way in which you can teach empathy and gain people a better understanding of all of our differences, with the hope that people will have an empathy that will prevent these things from happening ever in the first place.
20 years ago, I stumbled upon a novel entitled I Have Lived 1,000 Years, Growing Up in the Holocaust. And it was about a 13-year-old girl who miraculously survived because of her blonde hair. So when we talk about Ellie, for those children, that's the face, that's the one.
I think that you have to have the face to go with the story, and it completely changed how I teach and how the person that I became was because of putting that face with the story.
It has always been my goal that one of my students would come back and say, it's my turn to take it to this generation. I could have told you when Taylor was a 6th grader that it was going to be Taylor.
She's actually the reason I'm a history teacher. I want to continue what Miss Roberts started with us 20 years ago and continue that legacy.
We can't let this be forgotten. It can't be swept under the rug, and it's a very important part we don't want to have happen again. We've got to keep teaching it.
Whenever I choose a topic to teach in class, if I have something that will allow my students to use their hearts, they will use it.
The reason that I am a history teacher is because of the Holocaust program.
When you have that first hand to go up, now there's a curiosity that's being sparked. You know you've done that job.
As long as they never stop asking why or how, or more importantly, how do I stop it, we're going to keep running. We'll be here until they stop asking, which I hope is 3 days after never.